back to another episode, another video from my channel, Simple Living Suffolk, where I talk about books. Sorry, it's forced enthusiasm because I'm quite tired today. Anyway, grab a cuppa and let's chat about books. So I'm pretty sure on the last video I said I was going to talk about my November TBR this week. However, I've realised it's the 13th of November and therefore we're already halfway through November. So I thought instead I'd talk about the books I've read already so far this month and then what I want to read through the rest of the month. Oh look, you've got a sneak peek here of the stack of books next to me. So far I've read 4 books. The first one I finished was The Secret History by Donna Tartt and I rated it 4 stars. I finished on the 3rd of November. It's dark academia vibe for anyone who hasn't read it, and I love that sort of genre. I liked that there's like a intro, what's it called? It's called a prologue. There was a prologue that kind of told you what was going to happen right at the beginning, and so then the whole book is actually finding out how they got to that point. And I really like that kind of idea, because when I don't know what's going to happen and I've got to read 600 pages to find out, it's like I don't know if I want to waste my time doing that. So I really enjoyed that. I did find that some of the storylines weren't tied up, and people didn't have like normal reactions to things they found out. I won't say too much because I don't want to give spoilers if you haven't read this, but yeah, there were bits where I was a bit like, I feel like I would have reacted differently to that, and why is that not being made into more of a thing? But I did think the characters were interesting and there was some like interesting plot points. The only downside I would say is, if you can see here, that's all of these tabs, all of the chapters. So basically of a 700 page book or something, 600 page book, there's like 8 chapters, which, yeah, 8 chapters. Which for me, I love a short chapter, and I really struggle to like stop reading partway through a chapter and just have a break. I like to read a whole chapter at a time. So when some of the chapters are like 150 pages, that's obviously not possible. So that was a bit of a struggle, but I did really enjoy it. So 4 stars. And the next book I read was Akala's book Natives. I showed you it last week. It was one that I got from the library, but then I decided to audiobook it instead on Spotify, and I rated it 4.5 stars. And I finished it on the 6th of November. I really enjoyed the book. I got it out because it was like highlighted in my local library as a book to read for Black History Month. And it very much looks at the intersection between race and class in the UK, which I found really interesting. Obviously, I'm a white person, but I grew up like on a council estate by a single parent family, and so I would be considered like lower class, lower than working class, below the poverty line maybe, in my growing up. And as an adult, I've done that mythical thing called social mobility, and I suppose I'm now technically middle class probably. I own a property and I earn a decent salary, more than I need to survive, and I've got car and finance and things like that. So I found that really interesting, hearing Akala's experiences of similar thing, of the social mobility and the change, and also the like differences in social class and how difficult it is when there has been social mobility, because some things you just don't understand or just don't make sense to you. And I do find that in my life there are definitely like misunderstandings I have with people, because I'm now surrounded by middle class people primarily. My social group are like middle class people, and sometimes they like say or do things and I'm like, that is so not what I would have thought in that situation, you know. And like the idea of that something goes bad and they'll call the police, and you know, the way I was raised, you just don't do that unless it's like there's no other option. So I found it really interesting. And then obviously the race side of things was just interesting from an outsider perspective, because it's not my lived experience. And I found it particularly interesting because I live in a rural area where it is primarily white people here. So I can imagine it is quite difficult growing up in this area where it's primarily white as a non-white person. Next book. I really should have drank this coffee before I started filming, shouldn't I? Next book was Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. This was for book club and I rated it 5 stars, and I also finished it on the 6th of November, which was the day of book club. I adored this book, and it was a bit controversial, I suppose. Like, not everyone rated it as highly as I did at book club. There's only 4 other people there, so there are only 3 other people there actually this month, and they all enjoyed it, but they didn't rate it 5 stars. I loved it because I felt like it was poetic and the writing was really romantic, and it talks about queer love story between teenagers in a rural Ireland in the late 1980s and 1990s. I think it's really interesting. There's like a religious side of things, and it's like the timing is very interesting politically, because that's about the time that, well, from the start of the period to the end of the period is between when it became legal to be gay in Ireland. Obviously for men it was always legal for women, but that's not the point. Anyway, it's really interesting. I really enjoyed that. So obviously I'm not from a rural Irish community, but I did grow up as a queer person, and it's very difficult coming to terms with your sexuality as a queer person. And in this book, the main character's got like her group of girls around her, and her fear of like coming out to her girls and their reaction, which was just so relatable to me, because like I've been there. I think a lot of like people who had girl groups but were queer has had that feeling of like worrying about being ostracised. And then it was really interestingly written as it went over a number of years. You then see like the move away from the girl group, and how the things you put a massive priority on when you're a teenager just aren't that important when you're an adult. And also the perils of like decision making or like indecision, and how not making a decision can end up being a decision in and of itself. And one of my favourite quotes in it was, "Introspection is like cyanide." And isn't that just perfect for the anxious girlies out there? So that was the 3rd book I have read so far this month. Fourth book I read was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I got that in Kindle, so I don't have it to show you. I rated it 2.5 stars. Was not a fan. I did not enjoy it really. I felt like, so I started reading it. I've heard it, like, it's like all over TikTok and like BookTok and BookTube and stuff. Everyone reads it and they love, like, it's, everyone says it's really good. So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. I read maybe the first 10% and I just thought, I don't know if this is for me. Like, the characters are all very heavy-handed in that. So like, this character is very good, this character is very bad. Like, you're supposed to like believe the very obvious explanations of that person being a good person, this person's being a bad person, this child's a brat, this person's come from prison, so oh, I wonder what they did. I spoke to the girls, so I've got a group chat with some girls I met on Discord where we talk about books, and I asked their opinion and they said, oh, keep going until there's a change in the point of view, like, and who the narrator is. So I kept going. As soon as I said that, I thought, oh, it's going to be like Gone Girl and like Fleishman's in Trouble, that kind of book where all is not what it seems. Again, I won't give you spoilers, but I kept going until the point of view change, which was, I think, more than 50% of the way through, at which point I was like, oh, I'm really still not enjoying the book, but I'm already over halfway and it's only like 300 pages, so I'll finish it. I did finish it. I didn't enjoy it really. 2.5 stars. Not for me. And that brings us on to the next book, which was a read along with the girls on Discord. So if any of you use Storygraph to track like what you read, they have both the buddy read function and a read along function. And the read along function is where like you can set certain sections to read at a certain point and then discuss them with some friends. Pardon me. So the Discord girls had set up one for a book called Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez, which is translated from Spanish. I think it's a South American book. And so the read along started about a month ago, and I was running late. It's supposed to finish sort of towards the end of November, and I thought, oh, I'll start reading it now. It was 750 pages long, the book, 700 and something. And I DNF'd it, I didn't finish it. I got to about 11% in because I wanted to give it a good try. And so I got 11% in, which is about 70 pages. And just like all the characters were unlikable. I didn't really connect with any of them. The plot felt quite slow. So I like interesting characters or fast plots. And the book didn't really have either of those. And I just thought, I don't want to push through for 700 pages, especially because I'd just read The Housemaid and hadn't really enjoyed it. I was like, I can't do two books I'm not enjoying in a row. So basically I kind of put myself in a bit of a slump after that. I've got 2 books still out from the library, so that's everything I've read so far this month. And I've got 2 books still out from the library, which is Gideon the Ninth and Maggie O'Farrell. I renewed these and they're now not due until the 1st of December, but I think I'm going to return them. I think I'm not in the mood for either of them. I'm a big mood reader, did I just say that? This one sounds really interesting. It's historical fiction, and I do feel like this is the sort of book I'd really enjoy, so maybe I'll keep this one out. This one's like a fantasy, and I do love fantasy, but I'm just not in the mood for fantasy at the moment. So I think I'm going to return this one. So yeah, I've made a decision on the spot. I'm going to return this one. I'm going to keep this one out until next week. So me and my friend, we both don't work on a Wednesday, so we go to the library on a Wednesday. And so I'll keep this out for another week, and I'll return it next week if I haven't started it. But in the meantime, I needed a palette cleanser because I'd had 2 books I wasn't a fan of in a row, and I just wanted something I know I'd enjoy. So we went for the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, which is the 2nd book in the series, in the Dream Harbour series by Laurie Gilmore. You've probably seen it all over BookTok and like YouTube. The first one was the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I loved it. I rated it 5 stars. It was just a silly little spicy romance where small town people fall in love and it's lovely. And I don't need highbrow literary all the time. Sometimes this sort of thing is great. So I started reading this yesterday, and I am like a third of the way through. I'm like 127 pages way through. That's how you know I'm enjoying it. And I thought I was going to be in a slump, and that's why I picked something I knew I'd enjoy, because I've smashed through this already. So I reckon I'll finish this in the next day or 2, and that will get me back on the reading hype, and then I'll go on to the Marriage Portrait, maybe. And another one I'm thinking of doing, just if I'm going to read another one this month, I'm thinking Ocean of Wang's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, because my friend is audiobooking it and she said it's amazing and really poetic, and it's only a short one. I quite like short little books to sort of get me going, so I'm going to give this one a go. I think we'll see. Oh my god, hey, this has been added back in last minute because I realised I forgot that the Discord girls also decided we were going to read The Goldfinch as a read along, and that starts the 16th of November, so I'm going to start reading this month as well. Another Donna Tartt, and it's massive. Wish me luck. And then finally, not really for enjoyment, but I'm reading Bisexual Spaces by Claire Hemmings, because I am still working on my dissertation literature review, and by still working I mean I have done about an hour's reading a week for the last 2 months, despite the fact that I said my 2 days off a week would be to read from university, would be for university, but I am not doing that. Instead, I'm having coffee with my friends. But anyway, I started reading this on Monday. I've read like the intro, the first few pages. I've already read it once because you can see I've tabbed it all up for a previous essay. I'm now on page 26. I'm not tracking it on my Storygraph to say I've read it because I am skimming parts of it, and I'm pretty much just focused reading it on what is relevant for my dissertation, which is why I am reading it. So there we go. That's what I've read this month, and or plan to read this month, and or have DNF'd, and or am returning to the library. I hope you enjoyed this video, and next week I'm going to give you a tour of all the books I got bought for my birthdays and bought with vouchers for my birthday. Well, not all of them, because I've got a friend who's going to take me out in a couple of weeks to get a couple more books, but the majority of the books I got for my birthday. Anyway, have a lovely rest of your day. I've crossed my arms, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Oh, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this as well, obviously.